Investigators say the child was forced to live in a dog crate and sit in dirty diapers for days. The abuse and neglect reportedly happened for about a year and a half. The gruesome details are what Lee thinks prompted the DA to push for the harshest penalty.
And we got to talk about the beautiful young 6-year-old who was tortured to death by her legal guardian and family members, aunts and other family members. And it seems like now they're saying that the aunt and the legal guardian is going to possibly get the death penalty.
Tanya McKnight is one of 3 people charged with abusing and killing 6-year-old Dominique Moody back in December 2025.
Everyone kind of knew it was on the table, but no one really expected, because it's Mecklenburg County, that they would actually go through with it.
Criminal defense attorney Aaron Lee sat in on that hearing Tuesday. McKnight is the only woman of the 3 accused in Dominique's murder who is facing the death penalty. Court documents show the 6-year-old weighed only 27 pounds at the time of her death and had broken bones, burns, and scarring covering most of her body when she was found unresponsive at a home in East Charlotte last year. Investigators say the child was forced to live in a dog crate and sit in dirty diapers for days. The abuse and neglect reportedly happened for about a year and a half. The gruesome details are what Lee thinks prompted the DA to push for the harshest penalty.
And you know what the worst thing is? That the CPS came there or were called there 50 times prior to her death. 50 times. Absolutely crazy.
Now, the last time the Mecklenburg County DA's office pursued the death penalty was back in 2017. The capital murder charge was eventually dropped in that case. The last person actually sent to death row in Mecklenburg County was Edward Lee McNeil. He was sentenced to die in 2007 for the murder of his ex-girlfriend's 4-year-old daughter. Now, as for what happens next in this case, state law requires an additional attorney with the death penalty experience to be assigned to the case. If it does go to trial, there will be a very detailed jury selection process. So with all of this, we want to bring in our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. One very sad case that we've had here in Mecklenburg County. What do you make of the judge of deciding to go after the death penalty?
Well, the decision is by the DA's office, and so that every case, anytime a person is charged with a capital offense, which murder is a capital offense, there's an opportunity for death penalty to be the option. And so it starts with the death penalty. And I tell every client that I have that's charged with the homicide that that's where you're at now. Before the Rule 24 hearing, which happened yesterday, that's where it's at. Until the DA makes a determination that they're not going to decide to go forward with it. At that hearing in open court, they'll make a determination, and ultimately it's a no, we're not. As Attorney Lee, me and him have been in a number of trials together. I can say that he's extremely familiar with how that process works. You go through it and they get to that point where it's very, very close. I've had about 4 cases throughout my time where it was, okay, I thought the facts were going to be to that level where they believed that it would be the death penalty. I've actually had a couple DAs in other counties tell me we were very, very close with charging and going forward with the death penalty. They just decided to go a different way. And so they make that determination, and now, as you mentioned, that additional attorney is going to be assigned. So you're going to have 2 now attorneys. One will be your capital defender. The other one will be a co-counsel to the case. And now it's waiting, looking at discovery, the same typical process you would go for, but it's going to be a lot more on the line in terms of what what you're attempting to defend.
How do you make the determination on what crime is bad enough to where you say the death penalty is warranted? That is the ultimate decision that they have to make. And the torture and murder of a 6-year-old girl that was placed in a dog cage and bound by duct tape, that leads up to, yeah, you deserve to be put down. I mean, you got to call it how it is. Let's keep going, though.
Oh, well, since we're talking about capital punishment here, is there an extra layer of proof that the prosecution will have to provide since we're talking, you know, death penalty?
No,
here?
we just need conviction. So you need conviction, and but it also is it's kind of like our last story when we talked about that jury selection. Because I've went to a number of CLEs, continuing legal education, that talk about the jury selection process when you're getting prepared to select a jury for a death penalty case, and you're trying to get rid of and the best way I can describe it, how they said it in the CLE, is killers, people on your jury that don't mind hitting yes to selecting that you would be okay with the death penalty, and trying to make sure you find ways to get rid of those folks, not folks that will convict, But people that will say, yeah, I'll convict, but I don't want to choose death, that's two different questions. And trying to make sure that you find, if you're defending this individual, trying to find folks that won't select death, that's going to be your biggest obstacle when you actually ultimately get to trial.
But see, I'm trying to figure out, how does the defense, because he's talking about the defense throwing out possible jury members who saying that, okay, I understand, but I am totally against the death penalty. How do you throw somebody out who is for the death penalty without it being biased or making it seem actually a legitimate reason why? Or do they not need a legitimate reason? Let's keep going.
Belief, I want to go back to your first answer, because you said you've had numerous cases where you thought the facts might be that where the DA would go for the death penalty. What do you think that delineation is between, okay, we have enough to go for the death penalty and we're choosing not to go? Do you think likelihood that we'll get that? What do you think is the fine line there?
It's probably a little bit of both. You're talking about the totality of the circumstance, but I think the horrific nature of the facts, and I've had cases that were very similar to this. Anytime there's a case involving children, I think the DAs are going to consider that determination. Anytime it's an elderly case, I think they're going to make that determination as well. Those are the two factors I think that jump off the page. And then it's just the nature of the charge, right? It's already one that has those eyeballs looking at it, but then the weight of the evidence. How strong is the case that we have against this person? What is the likelihood that we can get a conviction? And then I'd have to echo back, when I have those discussions with the prosecutors, when they say, yeah, we decided to go or we didn't decide to go, it's oftentimes fact specific. What happened in that instant, in that moment? What did they do? What can we prove? How strong do we think our case is? All of that is layered on top of it. But anything involving children, I think there's a chance every time.
There's also legislation that's been prompted because of this case specifically. Why is it so rare in Mecklenburg County that we brought this up so many times?
It's not just Meck, it's our entire state. I mean, it's the entire state is, I will say, not as strong with the death penalty as, say, a Texas, for instance, or even South Carolina, right? Our neighbors right to the south of us. I think that North Carolina just has not been a state that has selected to go forward with the death penalty. And I'll say it's not because we don't have prosecutors that are tough on crime. I just think we haven't had facts that connect with cases where they believe all of those things line up. And because of that, I think that's where you have a scenario where they've chosen not to. Annie, quickly, you mentioned that the legislation that was passed in the wake of all this occurring, that's that backwards looking, that reflective type of thing, like steps were missed. DHS was notified, but nothing was followed up. Why did that happen? How can we prevent this from happening forward? Legislative. We are very reactive. That was a good reaction to a bad scenario.
All right, Khalif Rhodes, thank you.
Yeah, you have to be reactive, but it's awful thing where you have to make changes to the law that after someone uses, or after the law fails someone, and especially fails a child. It's a crazy situation, y'all. Let's get over into the AI breakdown just to wrap it all up and see what else we can learn from about this case. So, as we talked about, the prosecutors announced that they will seek the death penalty against Tanya McKnight, one of the three women who was charged with first-degree murder of the horrific December 2025 torture and death of the 6-year-old Dominique. She was found unresponsive on December 16th, 2025 at the East Charlotte, North Carolina home. When first responders discovered her, the condition was described as completely unalivable, lacking central heat, infested with rats, and littered with feces. Court affidavits showing a pattern of extreme systematic torture. At 6 years old, she was 3 feet tall and weighed just 27 pounds, heavily emancipated. How do you say that? She was starving as a form of punishment. Witnesses and investigators stated that the child was regularly locked inside of a dog crate in the living room. She was bound with duct tape, beaten with belts, and left in a soiled diaper for days. Her body was covered in old and new scars, broken bones, burns, open wounds in the various stages of healing. Jesus. 3 adult caregivers, Susan Robinson, 61, Tonya McKnight, 52, and Terry McKnight, 23, were all arrested and initially charged with child abuse, which was upgraded to first-degree murder in early 2026. During a Rule 24 court hearing, the county district attorney's office declared it intent to pursue capital punishment exclusively for Tonya McKnight. Investigators identified her as the primary aggressor who led the systematic abuse, and this marks the first time the district attorney has sought a death sentence during his tenure. Prosecutors will not pursue the death penalty for the other 2 co-defendants. All 3 women are currently held without bond and scheduled to return to court on November 10th, 2026. This case sparked a widespread massive public outrage and a high-profile civil rights attorney, Ben Crump, demanding systematic accountability. Investigators' reports from the WBTV News uncovered that the authorities visited her home nearly 50 times in the years preceding her death. The county had opened and closed 5 separate reports alleging severe child abuse and neglect at the residence. Yet neither Dominique nor the other 4 children who were in the home were ever removed. In the response to the awful administrative oversight, North Carolina lawmakers passed an Oversight Act in the name of honor of Dominique Moody. Signed into law, the legislation mandates that a specialized statewide team to strictly review the state's most critical child welfare and abuse interventions. Let's see, anything else? If the case proceeds to trial, it requires an extensive, detailed death qualification jury selection process to filter out jurors who are capable of considering capital punishment. Wow. Now, to me, this sounds like a death penalty case in general, but how does something like this happen? How does the CPS fail this badly? How do you do 50 visits, but the house is infested with rats and feces everywhere? I don't understand it. Did you just never go? Did you just say you went and write it down? How does that happen? Why? Someone needed to be fired. Someone needed to be in jail from CPS, be honest. The system failed this little girl. 6 years old, placed with the family. The system truly failed her. And I don't know how you could ever trust the system after something like this. Now, I do wonder, where were the parents? So her biological mother had voluntarily placed her daughter in the care of her aunt after falling on hard times a few years prior to the tragedy. Because she trusted her family to care for the child, she signed over her legal guardianship, completely unaware of the systematic torture that would follow. Wow. The mother, of course, is seeking justice, demanding accountability. Her maternal grandmother publicly expressed that the family's immense heartbreak, stating that they ended up trusting the wrong person. And sometimes it be your own family who will do the worst to your children. It's a crazy situation, y'all. Let me know your thoughts and let me know, what are you thinking? Do you think that the death penalty is warranted in this? Or are you saying that in no case ever should the death penalty be a possibility? It's a crazy situation, but this is the type of stuff we have to look at.